Mr. Chairman, we're on the air.
Welcome, everyone, to the meeting of the Township of Long Hill Planning Board for February 11th, 2025. Just to note, we are starting this meeting at 7:51.
I believe, I'm trying to figure out,
Nope.
there's feedback on the TV, so I'm trying to. Mute. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Deb, would you read the announcements when you're ready?
Yes. I'm trying to figure, can you hear the feedback?
Yeah, I hear it.
The TV was, and I don't.
Is there a manual button on the TV? Lower the volume?
I don't know if it's doing anything or not. All right, we're going to continue. All right, call to order and statement of compliance. Adequate notice of this meeting or hearing has been provided by posting a copy of the public meeting hearing dates on the municipal bulletin board and website, and by sending a copy to the Echo Sentinel newspaper, and by filing a copy with the municipal clerk. Standard board procedures. Any meeting or hearing conducted by the board is a quasi-judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial meeting or hearing must be maintained at all times. Electronic devices. All in attendance are asked to mute cell phones or any electronic devices as to not interrupt the proceedings. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, is it the volume on your computer that might be it?
Yeah,
Thanks.
It sounds like it's coming from the speakers or something.
I hear it from the TV.
yeah, it sounds like TV actually. No, I hear
Is there a mute button?
There's no, I don't see a mute button either.
it. Really?
Sure, that's the,
Oh, wait. Okay, Ms. Dill is excused this evening. Mr. Hands?
Yeah.
Committeeman Lavender?
here.
Mr. Lavorario?
Here.
Mr. Mitchell is excused this evening. Ms. Ogens?
Here.
Mr. Opalka?
Here.
Vice Chairman Jones?
Present.
Chairman Richardson?
Here.
Chairman, we have a quorum.
Excellent. It sounds like we're in Yankee Stadium
Deb,
here
maybe it's
today.
the other TV as well.
No, but the other
There's
TV
two.
remote's not working, so let me just turn the other TV on.
Just turn it off there. There you go. That's
Is there like a volume button on the TV? I know they got rid of most buttons.
yeah, right.
It's the worst. It's the one.
Both TVs, when I set up, were off. So,
We need to make noise.
It's gotten worse.
It did. It's that.
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Testing.
Modern conveniences.
Messing around with
Did
our
you get it?
visuals again.
No, you didn't.
In the whole meeting.
Now batting.
Echo. No, we're good. Okay.
Good.
The echo is gone.
Why do we do that?
You have a choice, static or echo.
Pick your poison.
What are the? That's gonna mess up the.
It's not static,
I
it's
do
the
not have a
seashore.
degree in electronics.
Okay. I don't hear the echo.
No,
Oh,
definitely that
that's.
TV. All right, David. okay,
Wait.
Wait,
I didn't do anything.
I turned off something.
what'd you turn off?
My mic. Now can anybody hear me?
That's
Testing.
Twice?
Share Chris's, if yours is off.
I don't have one.
Yeah.
Where's yours? missed a mic? Oy vey.
Yeah, he's got mine. Yeah, there's another set there, I see.
All right, whatever you turned off, turn off.
We need the wireless mics like they have on TV sets.
No.
So, okay.
An operator in here to.
Okay,
Okay,
Yes.
are we good?
Yeah,
We're in
we're-
business.
Well done.
all right.
You got a job.
Easy.
Maintenance guy.
Another feather in the cap.
There you go.
Okay, our first item this evening is to vote on a resolution. Well, actually, the resolution was conditionally voted on the December 10th meeting. This is a resolution for Mr. Orjor Koznecki, application number 24-12P. I'll first entertain any discussion on the resolution. There was a couple of adjustments to it in regards to the eligibility for voting. And I believe
Yes.
we've cleared that up.
I did, I needed to add Mr. Hands. I added Mr. Hands at the top of page 10 under not eligible. And then Chris added on page 6 and page 9 that's letter V on page 6 and letter E on page 9, we added the code section 153.2.
Yeah, that's the lighting requirements. We double checked the ordinance just to ensure that was correct, so that's good.
And then the addition that I am not eligible to vote either.
Yes, in the, basically in the, I knew you weren't, but
Okay,
I forgot to put an X by your name
Yep.
in the vote box, but I will add that, yes, thank you.
Okay, and then also, I'll just mention, Mr. Hans put it out to me on page 8. Now therefore be it resolved, third paragraph in, it should be the 11th day of February, not the 28th day of January. Right, that's one.
Wait, on page 8?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think he said, Mr. Hans mentioned there was another issue too, but I said you'd be able to explain that, Deb, unless that's what you're referring to.
No, it wasn't. The Valley Road.
The what?
The Long Valley Road.
Oh,
no,
Yes,
Long
my
Valley.
favourite one.
on the very front,
yes, Long Valley.
it is Valley Road, not Long
Oh.
Valley Road. Yes.
Okay.
So
It's
whatever.
just Valley Road. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
not-
Yep.
On the tax maps, it's Passaic Valley Road on the
Yes.
tax map.
Are there any other
Yeah.
Just change it.
edits that people saw that they'd like to add before we turn this over to a vote, a motion and a vote?
Just a clarification, section 1 of what of the ordinance on page 9?
Oh, so section, we'll just go back to it, page 8, or I'm sorry, page 6, item V, numeral V, I guess, 5, above decision section. That was that we were just memorializing there, that the applicant agreed to comply with the ordinance's lighting requirements as pertaining to shut-off times of lighting fixtures. And those are at 153.2 of the ordinance. So that's why, on the initial drafting of this, I wasn't sure exactly what section of the ordinance it was in. So I left it blank, hoping that Liz or Deb would have filled it in when they reviewed it after the fact, and I guess everybody missed it, but we just confirmed it and looked it up, so we can confirm it's 153.2 at SEC. So that's also on page 8, that's where we concluded as an official, I'm sorry, not page 8, page 9 is where we included as an official condition of approval. So it's just filling that blank in those two sections.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, nothing substantive there.
Eligible members are Committeeman Lavender, Vice Chairman Jones, and Mr. Opalka.
So would one of you three like to make a motion?
Ah, With the mentioned changes tonight,
As amended, yep.
as amended.
Who's the second?
Second.
Okay, Mr. Opalka,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Jones,
Yes.
and Committeeman Lavender.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Great. Thank you. Okay, the next is an application that is to be carried. it's a minor site plan application to be carried to April 8th, 2025. The application is for Block 14602, Lot 10, on 682 Myersville Road, application...
6:30.
I'm sorry, 632, thank you, Myersville Road, application number 24-16P. This is for the proposed paving of an existing gravel parking lot and a statue as part of signage for the new restaurant in Myersville. I guess there's really only just the need for a motion and a vote
To carry.
to carry this.
Well,
We don't know really what the conditions are. Can you elaborate any further as to why the need for such a big extension?
I can, because
Yeah.
the applicant's engineer, together with our board engineer, has been working out details with the parking lot expansion. So the applicant needed, the applicant's engineer, needed extra time to put the plans together and felt that, the month of March was gonna be too tight.
Okay.
So that's why they asked to push it out to April 8th.
yeah, and I believe we deemed their notice to be sufficient all the way back in October. We've been carrying it by voice announcement since then, right? So, I mean, it's kind of up to the board at this point. It's been, the first hearing was supposed to be on October 22nd. We're going all the way to April, of the following year. It's been about 6 months. Up to the board whether or not they want to require additional notice on this. I mean, again, we've been carrying it by voice announcement.
Well,
As you can tell, nobody's here, so I don't think anybody was really interested in it to begin with, but, it's kind of a judgment call on the board's part.
Just a question. It says to pave existing gravel parking area, but you're saying it might be an expansion as well? So is that slightly different than what they first came in with?
I mean, at this point, I'd have to see the plans to really make it, a judgment call on whether or not.
But they're based on,
Yeah.
that particular piece of the gravelled area, they have been utilizing as far as that establishment's been a restaurant going back. But when you pave it and stripe it, you have to come in for a site plan, because they have to actually construct the parking lot, obviously. I'm not an engineer, so
Yeah.
excuse
I
my...
think there's some lighting that
There's
needs to
lighting
be addressed. I
details,
think there's
right,
gonna be
and then-
planters and some
But
other
there's also,
bumpers, there's a garbage,
you add the garbage, and then
sanitation
there's a
spot.
stream in the back.
there is a stream that's
Something
between
DEP
that
related.
parking and the sports complex on Myersville Road, on New Vernon Road, Myersville Field. So I think that all comes into consideration. So there might be a little reshaping, but I don't think it's really changing a lot. That whole back unpaved area.
This is in conversation with our township engineer, Joe Vooch.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, so Joe is probably coming up with some things that they need to round off the
Yes.
edges on.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sure. It's
Yeah.
Yeah, I think rather than getting into too many speculative details, we'll wait for the professionals' report and see what's necessary, and I assume that'll all be ready ahead of
Oh, absolutely.
the April 8th
So we're just doing the
application.
needful of
Yep.
Yeah,
continuation.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that, is it
Yep.
just really paving existing gravel lot, right? So if we're putting on the agenda in the future, is it a little bit more than just that? So it sounds like it's constructing a parking lot is basically
Well, I think
what-
we can just say right now, and other improvements
Okay.
to the property, and then we'll obviously hear more details in
Sure.
regards to what
I
they're
think the
proposing.
operative word is proposes.
Yeah.
So there's latitude there.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Yes.
the real question is if you want to require them to renotice again, publish in the newspaper, send to property owners. I mean, from what
Do
you're-
they legally need to do that, or can we?
It's kind of a judgment call on the board's behalf. I know we've been carrying them by voice announcement, and it's a policy decision. It's up to you whether or not you think the public deserves more notice. Like I was saying, we've been carrying this by
Yes.
voice announcement, I think even to tonight. Nobody's here. Nobody showed up for the other hearings, so there might not be that much public interest, but again, judgment call on the board's.
But having said all that, I think I hear what you're saying, Tony. I think there's a material difference between existing and if they do something that alters the size, basically, and location of the car park, then I personally would be tempted to say they should be noticed with that additional information or clarification. Because
Well,
it could be...
Or just
The notice
renotice.
wouldn't
Does-
change.
Yeah,
Right.
the notice wouldn't change with
Right.
those details.
Well,
It's
what goes in the notice? How much information will go into notice?
This legal standard is that has to put a reasonable person on notice so that they would go look at the plans to get more information, right? So just essentially a general description of
Right,
the proposed scope of work.
which is fine. So this is the general description here, but
Well, that's-
existing and
yeah.
expansion are two different things. I would think if you're going to say expansion, then they should read notice. Personal opinion.
I mean, erring on the side of caution might be a good idea just to have them renotice. I mean, they haven't finalized the plan, so we don't really know exactly what it is they're proposing at this
Exactly.
point in time, so,
Have them renotice.
Yeah.
okay.
That would be my recommendation.
All right, I think we should have a motion, if that's the way the board feels, then.
Right, there should
Okay.
be.
It's,
we
okay,
don't have-
so,
Then we're actually not carrying them. We're just gonna,
Well, it's carried with further notice required.
Okay.
essentially.
right, so that would be the motion.
Yeah.
okay.
So the
Well-
motion that I'm hearing, if somebody would like to make
Oh,
it, would be to motion to carry with notice.
Oh, also, Mr. Chairman, real quick before the
Yes.
board votes on that, I'd also mention you could require just notice to surrounding property owners as opposed to notice both to surrounding property owners and in the newspaper. You know, I mean, it's up to you if you want to save them that additional expense.
Yeah, but it's
Somebody
a
said it.
material thing, and it's a commercial property, and it's in the
I-
middle of
I think it should be
Myersville. I would be
full
more
notice.
cautious
Okay.
and say
Yeah,
more the better.
Yeah.
Is my personal opinion.
So,
David, you'd like to make
Yes.
that motion?
Yes, if that's okay, our motion would, that we carry and they submit a public notice with a little bit more clarity as opposed to what they're saying here.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, motion carries, thank you. Okay, so we're right into old and new business. So the first would be noted, we have a couple of things that are off the agenda, but the first is a discussion regarding the board bylaws with the sincere hope that we might even be able to move to making a motion to adopt these bylaws, but that'll be dependent on discussion this evening. Just to give a little bit of background, we did have a subcommittee that reviewed this in detail, also had a Zoom meeting with the board attorney to review comments. What you see here, there was an original draft, and then what you see here is a revised draft, redlined, that we provided that showed some of the changes that we made if you did review the original draft. So here we sit tonight with what we felt like was a bit more of a finished product. This, in our minds, would also suffice to meet what we had talked about. You can see with the level of detail, really almost standard operating procedures and protocols. So, Chris, you might want to just weigh in. It is important to note how the statute works with the ordinance, which works with these bylaws. So you might want to
Right.
just review that, because that was helpful
Yeah.
to illuminate us in our subcommittee on that particular issue.
Absolutely, and I
Thank
know,
you.
I'll just mention, I know Ms. Ogden sent me some comments that also need to get incorporated before we go
Great.
through. I was just trying to pull those up, well, wasn't ignoring you, Mr. Chairman,
Yep.
but we'll come back to that. So, all right, so I'll just give you guys kind of the 101 on how this entire process started, right? So, maybe 6, 7 months ago, back at the zoning board, might even been longer, we kind of rediscovered that they hadn't updated their bylaws since 2015 or 2016, almost a decade, one way or another. So they tasked me with, providing them with an updated set of bylaws. So what I did to do that was I synthesized kind of like a standard template set of bylaws that my firm uses for most of our boards and the zoning board's former bylaws, which incorporated a lot of what's in your ordinance already and other, as well as other procedures that they had kind of come up with at least at that point in time. So what you're seeing before you is a kind of result of those two items being synthesized, but it also incorporates language from the MLUL, the state statute, as well as the Open Public Meetings Act, the Open Public Records Act, language from our ordinance, just to make sure everything kind of syncs together. So, yeah, that's about it. I mean, at the end of the day, the bylaws are what govern kind of how this board operates itself, right? The ordinance will trump the bylaws, the state statute will trump the ordinance, and then federal statute, and you work your way up the line. So this is kind of, again, the rules for the board and how we conduct business, but in being that it's a publicly available document, not just for members of the public, but for board members as well, what we try to do here is explain, how the ordinance works in operation. So, for example, I'm just going to try to pull something up pretty generally. So, Section 1:1-4, chairperson, right? Like, it's a, part of the MLUL is a requirement that the board has to pick a chairperson, right? So that's why it's in here, so it explains to the public and board members coming in, or longstanding board members, that requirement that you have to pick somebody like that. It also explains, like, for example, who's qualified to be what class of board member. The class 1 has to be the mayor or his or her designee. The class 3's township committee member, like Committeeman Lavender over there. Class 4 is, most of the people on the board, other citizens of the township. So that's it in a nutshell, Mr. Chairman. I don't need to go further.
Yeah, it's really the rules and what we need to live by. So the one thing I'm going to emphasize that, and we should make sure we're comfortable. I know that the subcommittee got comfortable with the fact that to put these in place means we need to follow them. The worst thing you can do is put something in writing and then not follow it. So we all need to commit to really understanding these, refer to these, and this become a living document. In fact, it was suggested, and I think it's a great idea, that each year we look in January to appoint a small subcommittee to just review these to see if any modifications need to be made. So this becomes a living document. So this is really good for a year, and then we'll review and make sure all the policies and procedures and rules are still current. Or else this thing gets dry and we forget about it, and then we may run into problems if we're not following it.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
The Part 1 Administration, Section 1 and 2, it's pretty much a verbatim copy of the code book, right?
For the most part, yeah.
Do you think maybe we should just refer to the code book? Because if for some reason something changes in the future, not saying anything will, but it just seems to me to be unwieldy to have the writing in two places.
I don't see...
Or at least a statement in there that says that if anything changes in...
Well, and thank you, Scott, because we did talk about that, and we did put in language that if any of the three things, if this conflicts with whatever we wrote with statute or ordinance, those take precedent.
Right.
Where is that?
Rule 3:7, all the way at the end. Conflict of laws.
Because that's standard language in a contract. If you have other contracts that you would always, have something that would be, take precedent.
Right, exactly. And not only that, but when you think about it, the bylaws, again, are the rules governing the board. They're synthesized from other sources of law. So, let's say tomorrow the state legislature and the governor decide to amend the MLUL, and there's no longer 4 different classes of planning board members. There's only they added an additional class. That doesn't mean the board is doing anything wrong. I mean, we're required to comply with the state statute regardless of whatever the bylaws say. At which point, if that's something that substantial were to happen, then obviously we go back and change it. But I mean, again, the whole purpose of this is to provide kind of a, something set in stone for the board itself, and not just the board itself, but also members of the public to see, because if you're looking through the ordinance, it's a little confusing, right? At least for your layperson who's looking at it doesn't know anything, but at least everything's that's relative to the planning board is in one single document here. And
So with regard to that conflict of laws statement,
Yes.
is there some activity in the bylaws which specifies that on an annual basis, we're going to review this for its compliance?
yes.
Yes, we added that.
Rule 3:5, annual review of rules. At the annual reorganization meeting, the board chairperson may appoint up to 4 board members to a subcommittee established for the purpose of reviewing the board's rules. This subcommittee, if so established, shall re-review the board's rules and if found to be prudent, offer recommendations to modify the rules to the whole of the board by no later than the first board meeting in April of that calendar year.
Okay, so you may do this, or will do this, or shall do this, rather?
Well, I put
It's up
may
to
in there.
the, up to the chairperson.
Right, there might be a year you don't want to do it.
Yeah, but I can't imagine why we wouldn't. But it does give a little wiggle room if, for whatever reason.
I think it's good
Decide not to
practice
do
to
it.
do it annually. It's a good way to refresh and catch anything that's new. It also sets the
Right.
tone for the board, so that way the board knows how we operate. It also sets the tone for the residents, the audience who come in, that we have something we can point to that says, this is how we're operating. So you may not have read it when you came in the door, but it is. out there
I
for
think
you
it
to look
offers
at.
a level of transparency that
Yes.
people have been interested to have, is transparency. and how we operate.
So we're not passing this tonight because I haven't read it.
No, well, I guess what I was trying to submit is that we had a subgroup that combed through this. I would like to acknowledge that we worked off the back of the zoning board
That's fine.
that went through this, and shout out to Tom Goskoff, who went line by line through this with the zoning
He's very
board.
thorough.
And was very thorough. But if you do have additional comments in it, this would be the time to bring those up.
I'd prefer to read it first.
I-
And then let me just a quick point, just a stupid point. Attire, I would not be approved right now because I'm wearing jeans. So there's going to be, I just need to read through it.
I just have a clarification
Go for
point.
it.
So on page 10, section C, number 2, the paragraph that talks about the hearing that has to happen in case somebody,
Wait, I'm sorry. Jeez. Are you looking at the red line version?
yeah,
I think the page numbers are different. Let me just make sure we're all looking at the same thing. Page 10?
That's not on this one, it's on this
was
one,
it?
okay.
yeah.
If you're, you gotta be looking at the copy.
Yeah, let's just make sure we're all looking at the
Yeah.
same.
I only printed
So-
the red line version.
yeah, so
Yeah.
I only,
Okay, so we're all looking at, okay, we're looking at the
Well,
red lines.
I have the real version.
He's got the
of
clean.
red line, so if you could just refer
So
to
it's
it by
10
the
on here.
number.
Yeah.
so it's
Yeah.
111, section C, number, Roman numeral 2.
Yeah.
So the way that it reads is shall be heard by up to 8 members, right? So what if there's only 5 members? You still have a quorum and all 5 have to vote against? Is that how you would interpret it? Or is it a 50%?
Oh, well, at least 5 of the sitting board members. Oh, that's a good question.
Right, so it's just, I think that there just needs to be, in that opening sentence, just something that says, the hearing shall be heard by a quorum of up to 8 board members.
Well, up to 9 board members on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
problem is
the
being
pers-
questioned whether or not they can sit. So there's 9 members of the board, one of them would be ineligible to vote
Right.
because they're the person that you're talking about
Oh, okay.
in this section, right?
Yeah.
So I think the purpose of this is saying that it's a 50% plus 1 vote, right?
Mm-hmm.
Majority.
You're right, a majority
Right.
Majority
Vote.
vote.
But the way that it's written is if you have 5 members and
Right, I see what you're saying.
only 4 vote against, 1 votes for,
Right.
So I think we need to go through this.
Yeah, so
Let's spend time on it.
if it said,
So you have not read it?
No,
Okay.
if and only if.
That's why we're trying to get
a
this out ahead of
majority
the
of the
meeting,
sitting
guys.
board members.
no,
right,
Right.
something
Appreciate
along those lines, because being, just the way that it's worded, could just.
Yeah,
make-
no, that makes sense. No, I hear you.
because it says discussion regarding bylaws.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, listen, if everyone wants to take
sure
time
it's
to read, we
fine.
don't need
I'm
to
sure
sit here tonight and read through it.
Yeah, it'll take a
If
while.
there are significant issues that you've seen already or insignificant issues you want
Just
to point
silly
out,
stuff
that's
like
great.
jeans. I mean,
Yeah.
really?
Can we have some discussion about, items we saw on it?
That's
Just
good.
ask some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, in that same section, 1:1-10, the first sentence, A, said, board members shall not discuss the substance of any current or pending application except within the specific context of a properly noticed public board meeting.
Yes.
Does that mean one-on-one conversations on an issue cannot be held? In other words, if I'm sitting down with another board member on an issue, maybe we're on a committee, talking about a subject, but we end up, one of us ends up raising something about a current or pending application, is that in conflict with this or not?
I mean, if you're sitting in like let's say we were to convene like a TCC meeting or something, like a technical review committee, something that meets ahead of the time, in that context it'd be okay, and it technically wouldn't be a publicly noticed hearing. The idea here is you're not really supposed to discuss a case outside of a hearing, right? Like with anybody. I mean, with a board member, it's one thing, I guess, if you have a question, or with board counsel, or with one of the board, professionals. But I see your point there. We could definitely kind of,
Yeah, but I
Tweak
think
that a
the
little bit.
analogy, from my loose interpretation, we brought this up in the subcommittee, is
Yeah.
it's likened to a jury. If you've served jury duty,
Mhm.
you're not supposed to discuss the testimony
Mm.
that has transpired until you're actually in deliberations.
Right,
With
exactly.
regards to the case rests, and then they give it to the jury. So this is kind of quasi like that. You're not supposed to potentially influence other members of the board until the hearing is complete, and then we start to discuss the
That's
application.
That's actually the guidance that's given during
Right.
training.
Yep.
So then that same issue would happen in terms of going to visit a site that has an application and
Yeah.
two of us can't go.
You
You
can
can go-
certainly go, you just shouldn't really discuss.
So I think that's somewhat disingenuous. How can you expect to go someplace and not be expected to speak or have someone observe you at that place and say you didn't speak? You understand what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Well,
It's very
typically-
difficult.
Yeah.
That's a
Yes.
tough line to draw.
I understand. Well,
It is.
typically, my firm, we just had one of these last week. We had to go to conduct a site visit for one of our other boards, and board attorney shows up. We make sure that, balls and strikes are being called. Nobody's going to accuse you of anything wrong. There's, a witness there. Yeah, but even still, at a site visit, you're not supposed to discuss the substance of an application. Typically, what will happen is, the property owner will show you around, but you can't get into like, oh, well, I'd really like to do this. Like, how would you feel if I, put this here instead of this, or, something like that. Like, they're not supposed to get into that, and you shouldn't engage with any conversations with them. It's inappropriate, right? Again, public hearing, like, you got to remember.
Can I make a suggestion on that?
Go ahead.
Because what's missing in this section is really that background, that perspective before you get into A, B, C, or D. If you just lead that off with an introductory sentence right under ethical responsibilities of board members shall understand that they will be engaged in a quasi-judicial process where impartiality and blah, 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 et cetera, and then get into the A, B, and C. And that would sort of set the tone for what Bob is saying, because if you have to figure that out yourself reading this because you're a newbie.
Well, if you go down to section D there, we do have a section on that about site visits.
Yep.
Yeah. Encouraged to visit the subject property prior to the hearing. In doing so, however, the board member shall not engage in any conversation with the owners or residents of the property concerning the merits of the pending application.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
I got
has
it.
nothing to do with site visits. It has to do with the spirit in which you enter into these 4 points.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Right.
Like
It also,
a statement that it's a quasi-judicial proceeding and you're supposed to respect as if it's a court of law in a certain sense. I see what you're getting at.
and to that point, when you go for training to be on a planning board, that is exactly what they tell you.
Yes.
You're not supposed to talk to the resident, other than I'm here, here's my ID, I'm going to take a look at this, boom.
Yeah,
That
observe
should
the
be-
responsibilities of a.
Even not
of
to
a-
call, like, I'm not calling Mr. Hand to say, hey, I'm going to that site, you want to come over there with me? No,
Right.
I just go and I take a look, I do my own personal observations, and then I leave.
Keep in mind, as you read through this, a lot of these are, literally prescribed rules and regulations, so,
No problem with that.
as much as we may not like something, that's the reality. That's what MLUL, the statute, and our ordinance are
Yep.
stating. And we're really just trying to combine and pull this all together.
That's okay.
So let's do this, guys, and gals, read through this and provide any additional commentary. I guess you could send it over to Deb or to Chris.
Yeah, you just need to email it to me. I'll try to
In
incorporate
regards
it.
to commentary, please refrain. We can't have a whole email discussion about certain things.
How
But I
many,
would like to move this
Agreed.
along. I
how many
mean,
people on the committee are there? 3?
There's
No.
3 of us.
Could we email the committee, or does it have to go to you?
You could email the committee, yeah.
I'd
as long
rather
as-
email the committee, because then you could
Yeah,
yay or nay.
yeah.
Well, there's 4 of us on the subcommittee.
Oh, that's right, somebody couldn't attend, right?
Or then you can't email the
I can't, because I'll be the
You can't,
5th.
Yeah.
committee. No,
Right.
but you can email me and I can email.
That's
the
fine,
committee.
do it that way then.
Yeah, that's fine, that works, yeah. Yeah.
That's fine.
That's why I was suggesting
That's
go to
fine.
Deb.
Yeah, always best to email me.
To
and
go
then
through
I
the
just send it to-
correspondence.
Yeah, I'm not going
I can send it to
to do the
you.
legal.
Right, okay.
legal.
So, just one,
Yes.
promise, quick question.
Sure, yeah.
113, powers and duties of the board,
Yes.
section
Yes, well, it's all
IX. That's kind of your catch-all, right? So like when the Morris County Planning Board, all that
Yes.
sort of stuff comes in, that's kind of like our catch-all that
I'm sorry, what section?
uh,
113,
The powers and duties of the board?
yeah.
performs such other advisory duties as are assigned to it by ordinance or resolution of the town.
Oh, IX, okay,
It's
yeah.
1-113.
Yeah,
One-
numeral 9.
1-13.
I got you. Okay.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Tony.
But that's your catch-all.
Yeah.
right? So,
Essentially.
okay.
That's if the township committee wants to appoint you, the board to do some kind of other special project, or,
So other agencies are off this. I just, that's like Morris County Planning Board. That's kind of what it means.
right,
That's-
like the state plan cross acceptance,
Yeah,
like how often
that's
is
kind
that?
of what I was thinking. of-
Exactly.
Of where it would go.
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Just
Yeah,
making sure that was
these
reading
are, this is kind of setting the universe
Yep.
of what we could do. It doesn't mean we will do all this,
Right.
but this gives us the power to potentially do any of these things.
Right, I just want to make sure that I was reading that,
Yeah.
when that came to us, that's where it falls in.
Yeah.
Or, you know, when we were talking about the Mount Laurel
Yeah.
stuff that goes to the township, like,
For affordable
making,
housing.
Similar.
making sure that that was caught inside the powers of the
Yeah.
board if it was being interpreted strictly,
Mm-hmm.
that's all.
Right.
Yeah, and this is all actually captured straight from the ordinance, which was captured from the MLUL, so it's all,
Really?
you know, it's all kosher.
How about you may have mentioned this one, the powers of attorney again, number 6. Annually prepare a program of municipal capital improvement projects
Oh, yeah.
presented over 6 years. Who does that? Obviously
This board can if it wants to. It doesn't.
It
Yeah,
says
it doesn't
annually.
mean that we'll do this.
I know, but it says annually prepare. That, to me, says you've got to,
It's only
You don't
if
have
we're required to, usually by the township committee.
Right. If you go to at the top of 1:1-13, last sentence, the board shall have the power to, means you have the power to do it. You don't have
Thank
to
you.
exercise it.
They
There you
shall.
go.
They
Shall.
thank you,
Yeah. Not the board shall, but shall have the power to.
That same one.
thank you.
Right.
All important
Yeah.
shall.
Listen, I think this is an excellent exercise. I didn't want to suggest that the subcommittee was to, do this whole thing. We got to a point. I think it's important that each board member review through this because there is a lot of really good, helpful
Yeah.
rules and
It's
our
also
regulations and our framework, so. So I'm gonna table this. You're gonna send your comments to
Yep.
Deb over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Then Deb, you can send them over to me. We'll distribute them out to the subcommittee and we'll get this into another draft and
Yeah.
before the next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I was going to ask, do we want to
Yes.
set a deadline for comments and then have it?
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, what's our next planned meeting date?
The 25th, so it's in 2 weeks from tonight.
So can we give everybody a week with this?
That's
Is that enough time?
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, so if everybody gets comments to us by the 18th,
That would be great.
from today, right?
Perfect.
That gives Chris.
Yep.
Yeah.
The 19th, 20th, and 20th, we'll say, 2 days, Chris, is that good?
Yeah, I could probably turn it around a couple days.
Okay.
Yeah, and then,
Then the board would want to have it, let's just say by Friday, right?
Yes, I think
Okay.
by Friday,
Yeah.
just to revise, I think what would make sense is to, you guys tell me, you guys and gals, if the red line is helpful to see where changes are made, so you're not having to review
Yeah.
through the whole thing.
Yeah, red line's
So we'll
fine for
build
me.
on the red line
Yeah.
version, I guess.
do we want to have a subcommittee meeting again on like the 20th to just confirm
To-
everybody's okay with everything?
I think that would make sense.
Ooh,
So that
okay.
would be a Thursday? Is that a
That's
Thursday?
it. Yeah, it's a tight day for me though. I know I have a meeting at night.
Zoom, please.
Yeah, could we just do a Zoom?
Yeah, could you guys
call?
do it in the afternoon though, like earlier in the
Late-
day? I
Can
need
we do
to,
later in the day?
Like-
Is that
like-
4 or so?
I could do 4 o'clock.
We do 4.
Yeah, why don't we
Okay.
do, how about 3?
Okay, yeah, three's even better.
Perfect,
All right.
All right,
we
so-
set the Zoom meeting for 3 PM on the 20th.
Yep,
correct. Great.
bring that down.
All right, thank you for your work on this. I presume that this won't be a big lift each year after this,
No.
but this is the
Right.
first version. We want to make sure we get it as right as we can.
It's good.
Okay, great. All right, so moving into other items and old business, Mr. Jones, I'll ask if you have some updates on a number of things, I
Yeah,
think.
thank you very much, Mr.
Yes.
Chair. I've got 2 comment areas and then 2 updates. So first thing I want to address is the flood map draft, which if everyone's gone on to the new Long Hill website, which I have to say is just amazing. Really a great job, really. So to those who did the work on that, what an uplift and what a refreshing look at the website. There is an article up there. It's called NJDEP and FEMA released updated flood risk data for Morris County. I think it would be a good idea to have the planning board engineer come in and just just give us an overview of what that, those changes are, because they're quite significant. And if anyone's taken a look at the map, the biggest changes that I noted are along the BD zone, the Valley Road, where from ShopRite all the way to Canner Park has been included, plus the central part of Sterling Village has also been included. I do question some of the mappings, because if you take a look at the area behind Walgreens, that's very high, and I don't know how that got into the flood, unless they're generalizing, right? There could be an island there. It would be good to get an overview of those changes. What's the impact? Give us some awareness, the board awareness, educate us, educate the residents who want to listen to it, and then it's also memorialized via video.
Yeah, I think that the town engineer, our board engineer, would be a perfect person to do that. And I think they could also discuss the limitations of these maps, because that's just as important for people to understand. On a site-per-site basis, there are limitations to the way that they construct these maps. So, great.
Yeah, we had a discussion with Joe also a few meetings back, and, there's different, I won't say terminology, but different cross-hatching that didn't exist at the other time.
Right.
And, he'll tell us how much different, if at all, it is from the previous.
Right.
But what I recommend is if we could have him, like, with the map up,
Yes.
pointing
Yes.
at the screen, because we're going to have questions by
Perfect.
neighborhood, like, what does this new shading mean here? And,
Right.
and that's really important for him to do.
Good.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you feel like it is important to do this at the planning board level, or would you make it, or do it at the township committee level? Because we could,
I think it would be good here. I think we'll
Okay.
get a lot of intelligent questions coming from this dais.
perfect, okay. So is that something we could squeeze into the agenda for next meeting?
I don't see why not.
Okay.
But I would leave it up to Joe to decide. So I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, just
Sure.
shooting, or the chair, whoever,
I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
send me
why
an
don't you do
email.
that?
I'll
What-
send-
And include Joe on it, and detail what you want him to present.
Yep.
And how you want it to present it, and then we can go from there.
I've had a preliminary conversation with him via email, and I
Yes.
exchanged some of the maps back and forth, and he has come back to me very detailed, which I was good to see. But for me to articulate what he wrote to me is not the right thing to do. So I'm happy to follow up with him to find out what would work best in the coming planning board schedule, to see
Perfect.
where it is that
Right,
would
so
be
like
best
keep me
best
in
to
the
fit
loop,
him.
Because I don't know, 2 weeks would be.
I know he's got a full
Sufficient
plate of
time?
things. He's got a
Right.
lot of things on his agenda, so I want to make sure
All
that we
right,
can
so
use a
reach
good time
out,
of his time.
yeah, but
It's not
sooner
pressing.
than later.
Let's
Right,
get it
because
done.
I want to
before-
also touch
let's
base
get it
with
done in the
Liz,
first quarter.
too, to see where she is on some of the master plan things, so,
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
right,
With
so.
yeah.
Well, one of the ways that he could do this, I think, would be productive both for the public and for us. Let's bring our laptops with us. Let's have him screen share in Zoom,
Yes,
right? And have him annotate as he's going on Zoom. That'll make a great video for the folks at home,
Yeah.
and it'll be right here in front of us, and we can ask questions. It'll be,
Right.
better than a pointer stick.
yeah.
That
Yeah.
may be something that you want me to notice for, too, I mean, because
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea.
that's why I'm thinking 2 weeks may not be sufficient
Okay.
time to
Yeah.
put notice.
Well, why don't you work
I'll
with
20 years
Tom?
to change
and-
the last flood,
Come on.
so,
And
Great.
now, Scott,
or 50 years.
he's challenging me, now I gotta remember how to do the whole Zoom process, thanks.
We'll get it sorted.
I'll have
We're
lessons for
going to
later.
climb into the 21st century kicking and screaming
Megan
here.
does it all the time, but
And if in doubt, just take the plug out.
yeah, take the blood.
Don't forget to put it back in.
I was just gonna say, you gotta put it.
I know.
All right, conscious of time, so thank you for that, Mr. Chair. The other thing I just want to bring attention to is the NJAW sewer expansion, right? We know that a couple of TC meetings ago, they did come in, was it the last one, Mr. Lavender?
Yes.
That they provided an update as to the plan going forward. It wasn't a very tight schedule that they provided, but they were trying to say that they were committing to the October 2025 deadline that they're proposed to meet. This is going to have a significant impact on our fair share housing third round that's already been settled. So, the Tifa, the Gillette, and the consignment shop areas are going to start getting some interest. I did notice that Mr. Forniatis was sitting in the front row at that meeting, so he is very keen to see what American Water is doing. I did reach out to him today to set up a meeting. I put Mr. Lavender on that as well. He's keen to meet the week of the 17th or the 24th, so I'll work on synchronizing a time to have that conversation with him.
Right.
But it's really to, again, talk about the site, and talk about the proposals, talk about his plans, just get an understanding what's going on there.
Great, perfect. Anything else to share on ordinance
That's
review?
my next
Yeah,
agenda
perfect.
item. Beautiful. So the ORC. So unfortunately, we didn't meet last week because I caught the flu was going around. So I spent all my time in bed. But Ms. Dill, Mr. Hand, and Mr. Mitchell will be part of the ORC. We do have two carryover ordinances from last year. That's 154.1 fence height, the other one 155.4, which is signs in residential zones. So, Ms. Kuntz, do we know when those are going to go before the TC?
They're going to be on the agenda for the 26th.
The 26th of
February 26th.
February 26th, great. So that'll go before the TC. The other items that we're going to start to review, some carryover discussion items, is the residential sheds, which is 137.7. We also were talking about ground floor apartment ordinance, so we're going to revisit that. We're also going to revisit the maximum setbacks. So this is to review the maximum setback along the commercial properties on Valley Road, so that's in the BD zone. We're also going to talk about the House of Worships, so we're going to review religious houses addressed in our ordinances. We're also looking at a couple of bulk items. So one of the bulk items is the Sterling Village. We have about 11 items that came out of the master plan that we completed. So we want to look at each of those 11 to see which ones we can start addressing. But the idea, again, is to do the bulk. Also, zoning map, which I know that's something that you're working on with Mr. Vooch. We have 16 items there that's from the master plan. So we want to start looking at that and start addressing those through the course of the year. So I don't know if you have any updates on the zoning map.
Just in that it has become highest priority for Joe. So Joe is now engaged in working on that and dragnetting all of the older overlays and information. I think the last time it was really officially updated was 2016, but there's information for applicants with regards to piecing it together. This is now just kind of collecting all that from 2016 on and developing a map that shows it in one place. So I expect, I don't have a timeline yet, but I know it's high priority. It also kind of dovetails with some of the sewer work as well. So
So there's a lot
that's
of
all.
overlapping agenda
Yes,
items there,
there's-
and then we have some contingencies.
So,
on
you know,
those as
my
well.
sincere hope is within, the next couple of months that we'll have that updated zoning map
So
to
hopefully by
work
the
with.
end of Q2.
Yeah, I
Fair
think that would be a good reasonable.
Okay, that's a
Okay.
nice target to work towards.
And then just the other thing that we should be getting input, and Deb, you could maybe update us on the zoning report from the zoning board with regards to their review of 2024. When we're into February, when can we expect that? Has that been discussed in regards to pulling that information together? through
Not
the?
yet. I have it almost done on my end, so, but I'm not going to introduce it to this board until we're done with the master plan stuff, probably. So I'll probably get it through the zoning board hopefully by mid-April at the
Okay.
latest. So
Because
that-
I think that's important information. I
Oh,
think we know
100%.
where they're going, but it's
Yeah.
important for the committee, the org, to understand where some of the pressure points are. I think we know where most of those are from last year. I don't think things have changed that much, but it'd be still good
No,
to
but
hear.
it's eye-opening for sure.
Right.
So- And it's actually 3 years, I think, worth.
3 years? Has it been that long?
It's been a while.
It's been a while.
It has
I
been a
didn't think it
while.
was that long either, but with all
Yeah.
the changes in professionals and shuffling and.
Okay.
Is it in their bylaws?
What's that?
Zoning.
It's supposed to be done
It should be in
annually.
their bylaws.
Yeah.
I have to go back and
Right.
check.
We're gonna start holding people accountable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I mean about putting it in writing. When we put it in writing, we better get it.
Master plan work in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
You're gonna have, I think it's like a 3-year review.
The good news is there's no legal penalty for not doing it.
That's
Right.
good.
Exactly.
That's good.
So,
But it's gonna be very beneficial to this board moving forward with the ordinance review for sure.
Yeah.
So I wanna get it through the zoning board by April the latest, so that then we can move on to that.
Sounds good.
great. And then just real quickly to interject, because I think you had one more
I
thing.
do. So
Okay,
just the
do,
last thing on
Yes.
the ORC is our cadence is to meet every other week
Okay.
for 30 to 45 minutes to talk about things, so this way we can get a cadence of work going and stay focused.
great.
The other thing, and which I think Ms. Kuntz was alluding to, is the State Plan Cross Acceptance Committee, which Mr. Han, myself, and I'm gonna make a first attempt here. Mr. Lavoriero, good, Mr. L, short. 2 weeks ago, Mr. Hand and I, we had a meeting to just put together a timeline, a plan and an approach to how to deal with the questionnaire. There's a series of about 10 questions, I think it was, and there was a breakdown of others, plus a small questionnaire. So we're putting that in a spreadsheet to start formulating how we're going to address each one of those. I think we should highlight the fact that in the state plan, there are 10 areas that they want us to focus on or tie back to. And those goals, just so everyone here knows, it's about economic development, housing, infrastructure, revitalization and recentering, climate change, natural and water resources, pollution and environmental cleanup, historic and scenic resources, equity, and I think the last one is sound and integrated planning. So I think the document is about 168 pages, if I remember correctly. I started reading a lot of that, and it's very, very high level. So the approach is to kind of look at what is written and how do we stand against each of those items, and to see if there are any discrepancies or where do we fall short, or are we in alignment with that.
And what's the timeline now to
So
complete that?
we need to complete that by the end of Q1. On February 28th, there is a public outreach meeting that will be held down in Morris County here, or Morristown. That's from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. Those in attendance will be able to ask questions. Those not in attendance will be able to submit questions. There will be a virtual attendance available, but you will not be able to ask questions. So it's very important that you know where you sit in all of that. I think Mr. Hand is going to try to make.
I'd like to go. Bob, you're going to go?
I was going to try to go.
We'll talk, but yeah, I'd
Okay,
like
It'd
to
be great to
go.
have representation.
So it would be
right?
good to have, I will absolutely be on the virtual part. I will not be able to attend in person, but if we can get Mr. L and Mr. Hand to go, that would be great. There is a rain date, March 7th, so just be aware of that, same time. But we are going to plan an attack, and we're going to meet. We have a cadence of when we're going to meet, and we'll also be providing this body an update as to our progress.
Great.
Then I will, pardon me for the interruption, I will clarify, and I apologize for not being, when I'm talking about master plan, I'm actually speaking of the updates we need to do to the fair share housing
Thank you.
plan.
Okay, that's the fair
Because
share housing, yes.
behind the scenes, our board planner is currently working with our township planner to get those ready, and because this board has to have public hearings.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons I'm saying with the annual report and some of the things, I'm
Gotcha.
not looking towards a schedule until we can actually schedule our public hearings and get through that, because between the Morris County and the fair share for round 4, this
Right.
board's got a lot of work to do.
Well, yeah, and it's really, we're updating our housing element of our
Housing
master
that's it.
plan,
It's housing element and fair share
which
plan.
folds in the fair
Right.
share plan.
Right, I think, see, they're two different elements, and Liz is gonna be writing one, and Jessica's gonna be
Yeah,
writing the other.
Liz, I've conferred
I
with
know, I
them.
keep
Yeah,
forgetting which one's.
Liz is gonna be tackling the housing element, and then feeding that to Jessica, who's pulling together the fair share plan. She did the prior fair share plan in, I believe, 2018.
Right. So I'm
was the
kind
last
of
that
leaving
that's been updated.
open, you know, the agenda so that we can get that done hopefully at the beginning of
Right.
Q2.
And
So-
we'll have to separate what comes before, and is it hearing at the township committee level versus the planning board level? I'm not exactly clear on where the hearings are gonna take place, but,
Well, the township
we'll
committee
become more-
won't have any hearings on it. It's just us.
okay.
Yeah, we present it, and then, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, they just accept it.
Yes.
Okay.
They don't, the township committee does, we have the public hearings, they just do the acceptance.
Gotcha.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
So we need to be thinking about that really, in March.
Right, and listen, if history is to tell us everything, it could go, we could have very few members of the public, we could have one night, we could have 5 meetings.
Right.
It's round 4, it's affordable housing, it's a hot topic, so
Yep.
we don't know which way it's gonna go, so.
So, well, first of all, that's great. Did anybody else have any other old or new business?
I just want to make a few
Yes.
points. Bob, I don't know, did you want to make a few points on the state plan that Tom was talking about? Quick comments that you may have first, or I've got a few comments I'd add.
Go first.
Just to give some sense of, so as you said, Tom, there's those 10 goals, and then we can go back and say how we're doing against some of those goals, or maybe challenge some of those goals. Right? So I'm not going to go into big detail, just a few things. One, I think we did a pretty good job with the master plan, because they talk about things like sustainability. We have that element, right? Open space, we have that element, conservation plan. Green buildings, sustainability, we have that. So I think we did a pretty good job at trying to broaden our view that falls naturally aligned with the state, which I thought was good. Some other things, the recentering. I think we try to put focus on the villages, the Sterlings, the Millingtons, the Myersville, and even Gillette, which was not present in the prior plan, is now present in the current plan. So overall, I think we were sort of going down that right path.
Good.
Some of the words that they use, reuse, repurpose, and I use the word rebuild. So that's a big focus there. It's not necessarily build out. It's more about reusing what we have and build internal to recenter. So we talk about things about what can we do to sort of not necessarily encroach into the natural surroundings, but more about how we better use the property that we have and connections between properties and stuff, I think. Because we always talk about that, walking across shrubbery, where there should be a little path between the commercial units. Why is there such a focus on landscape? And this is the words that they use in the plan. It detracts from the connection of A to B. So those are very simple things that we've even discussed here. That's a very simple minor point. And my last quick point is some of the stuff are bigger than just our town. And I think the state, the county, and the counties that surround us, not just the towns that surround us, the counties that surround us, and the state can help us do a better job at trying to do some things. And the flooding the Passaic River is one that strongly springs to mind. You've got part of the Highlands plan, and you've got the Passaic River Township. All have an impact on the Passaic River. So how are we coordinated across these organisations and maybe at a state level? And my last point is bringing together those entities at the state level that can help us. I use New Jersey Transit as an example, the trail by rail that we talk about. It's all good and just independently doing stuff. How can they help us? They can help us bring the right people, the right organisations to the table, where we could not normally do that easily.
Right.
So those are
Right.
just my quick.
Yeah,
Bob, I don't know if
thanks
you
for
have
that.
some additional.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing that we have to recognize is the housing plan element plays into the questionnaire. So having a good understanding of what's going in the housing plan element will help in our ability to answer the
Some of those
questions.
questions.
Right.
Right.
When you look at the maps, or the map, and digest the layers that are in the map, the township fares pretty well in what the state overlay says about our township, which we need to be careful about how much we do and how much we say, because right now this plan doesn't bring a significant amount of impact via the map to us. It's like David said, it's very high level. Some of it is very noble. It would take a lot of state funding to see some of the things that they're talking about happen. And it doesn't talk about that plan. So certainly the township doesn't have money to fund all of the things that are in that plan that could be done in our town. So it's up to the state to really define where they're going to get the money to start helping communities and where that money's going to go. And the way the map portrays the town, by that plan, it wouldn't be coming in our direction. Because they're not looking at the town as one of these towns that needs major change, which
Right.
I believe is good.
Right. It's a blessing and a curse if
Right.
you're
Right.
targeted for,
Exactly.
for change, so, great, thank you. Is there any other old business, new business?
I had a quick comment on the cross acceptance, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
please.
Actually, Mr. Jones, at the last meeting, I think, asked me to look into whether or not any public hearings are needed in this process. So in my research, the only time I could find that a public hearing would be legally required, I mean, I guess if you wanted to open up to the public, you're more than entitled to. If at the end of the day, when the county goes to submit its filing or its findings and submission to the state, if the municipality disagrees, then you have to hold the hearing before you submit something to the state on your own, explaining why you disagree with
Right.
their findings.
Sure.
So that's the only, at least my,
With
the
their
only thing I-
finding, that means they've come back to us with something,
Right, so you-
right? And we're disagreeing with what they're now saying.
you're disagreeing with what the county ends up
Because-
sending to the state.
Okay,
Right.
got it.
So then if
So
you
you
want
have to do the county hearing first. to
Right.
Right,
understand
after
the
that
Exactly
process.
right.
That's in the instructions on the questionnaire. They talk about if you
Correct.
want to go into this alone because you disagree with what the county's going to.
So if Morris County says they're going to build an extension of 78 right through Long Hill,
Yeah,
we may want to disagree with that.
exactly. And then,
But our goal is to, by end of Q1, submit
Oops.
our responses to the county, and then the
Right.
county's gonna do their thing.
Right.
And then we'll get a timeline as to what they need to do.
right,
Right.
right. If I recall, you get an opportunity to comment on what their draft is going to be to the state.
Right.
And then, again, if you disagree with that, that point, that's when you need to hold a hearing.
Okay.
I mean, I guess you're, like I said, if you want to have a hearing and bring the public in, I think you're entitled to, but, you know,
It's not
policy
required.
decision at the end of the day. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to conclude by thanking all of you for a lot of work behind the scenes. We've got a big lift this year, especially moving into the ordinance area. But on top of that, it's going to be shoehorning applications that we expect to probably pick up.
Round 4.
And the round 4 with the affordable housing. So thank you now and in advance of all the work that you're going to be doing.
Sounds good.
So is there, I'm sorry,
I was saying, thank you, Mr. Chair, and
Yes.
appreciate all your leadership on this.
great, thank you.
I get a raise, right?
With, yeah, with.
That's not in the
double your
bylaws.
salary.
That's not in the bylaws.
That's right. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.